Right, welcome back to session 4. This is the strategic leadership module as part of the MBA course. You are here at lecture series number 4, session 4. So session 4 takes a slight different direction. We started talking about leadership, the power in leadership. We talked about moral stages, value systems, ethics. We then went back into the power stages and went through those different categories one by one. But let's be real. Leadership is not about being nice to everybody. It's not about being a nice person. You're a leader. You're leading, which means you play a vital role in what's called strategic control. You're controlling what's coming in, what's happened when it comes in terms of the organization, and then the output, be it products or services. And leadership, and again, don't forget that, the differences here between leaders and managers, right? But leadership makes sure that all of that activity is aligned with the vision, mission, and values of the organization. And where it's not, you're monitoring that process. And where it's not, you're making those adjustments. You're leading to realign the organization, which means it's strategic because you're making sure that you're aligning with the mission, vision, and values. And it's about control. So there's a management element that we have to think about here and be real about it. So we're going to look at that here and what that again means in terms of ethics. Right, so we're understanding ethical decision making and organizational value. We're thinking about leadership and its links in ethics. And in this particular session, we're going to start thinking about corporate social responsibility. So as we are controlling all of that which goes on as leaders, we're thinking about what is the benefit that our organization has for the broader community, for broader economies, and for our employees, and all stakeholders, to be honest. Right. North House, because the North House is just talking about different styles of leadership, we don't have material within North House that we can draw on. And so I'm going to be drawing on this particular blog here from clearpointstrategy.com. It allows you to give access to this particular blog. And therefore, it allows you to be able to look at this particular material. You have the web link there. If you type that into Google, or if you use the address as it is, you'll come up with the material that I'm using here so that you can go through that at your own pace and go in a little bit deeper. Please make sure that you connect this with anything else that you may be learning. So again, you can deepen your knowledge about strategic control. Now, the very word strategic control, you're probably going into some management studies here. It's a core element of control within management, but also the word strategic means we're going into some kind of strategic stuff. So anything in terms of strategy, long-term strategy, strategic management, again, you'll probably find quite a lot of this stuff overlapping with some of that material. But we're thinking about how the leader is shaping and influencing this. And again, we're thinking about the ethics involved in those processes. Right, so this is our first diagram just to help our heads get around this. Thank you again for ClearPoint Strategy for allowing us to use this. I acknowledge the source that I'm using here. So components of strategic control. Don't forget, strategy is about 5 to 10 years. It aligns with the vision of a company, the mission, how we deliver on that. And the values, right? The values drive all of this. And this is the link back to leadership, is the leaders constantly are asking the question, in terms of the control within the company, to what degree is this still aligned with the vision, mission, and values that the company is associated or known for or by. So let's start on the top right-hand side. We'll start with implementation tracking. Now, actually, let's start with internal factors. Let's go there. So internal factors, external factors. This is your basic analysis that you would use within any business to ensure that you're positioning yourself competitively and correctly. Now, whether you're positioning yourself based on Porter's competitive positioning, cost leader, or differentiating, or whether you're using the resource-based view, you're looking at your internal value chains, you are using internal and external factors to understand that positioning. Internal factors, we would use things like Porter's 5 forces, thinking about our buyers, our providers, substitutes, rivalry, and entry into the market, Porter's 5 forces. Internal factors could also mean strengths and weaknesses of the company itself internally. We would use all of these to ensure that we are being informed in the activities within the company. External factors, a common tool that is used here is, of course, pestle analysis, looking at political, environmental, social, technological, legal, and economical factors that shape and drive factors around us that we need to react and respond to. Of course, internal factors we have a lot of control on. We can move to the left, move to the right in terms of our positioning. We could use strengths to advance. We could mitigate weaknesses to prevent that impact. But when it comes to external factors, such as what the pestle reveals to us, we are reliant on adjusting. So, you know, if we have a business in a particular country and the law has changed, in the UK we've got a new government, this is being recorded in 2024, Labour government is now in power and they've just increased national insurance, which means all employees have to increase their contributions, employers have to increase their contributions. Now for some companies, for small companies, this means the end of them. They just cannot afford those kinds of rises. They could pass it on to their customers, the buyers. So again, it influences internal factors. But for many of them, they can't increase those kinds of profits in order that it's going to reduce their profits. And it becomes financially unviable to continue. Now, external factors, you can't ignore it. You can't not do that. You're breaking the law. That's external factors. You just have to respond to those kinds of changes. And respond in such a way that you can still kind of, you know, control what's going on. So that's internal and external factors. Think about Porter's 5 forces, think about pestle. We then think about the adaptation. Now this is where strategy comes in. You could use the BCG matrix, you could use Ansloff's thinking about new markets, new products, new markets, and new products. The BCG in terms of dogs, stars, question marks, cash cows. You could be using tools such as differentiation in terms of cost leader or differentiating based on value or quality. These are the adaptions, right? These are the strategic bits that you are putting within the company, and you're taking a lead on this as the leader. And again, making sure that you're aligning with the mission, vision, and values of the company. You're then wanting, and we'll go into lecture series number 5, is all about this kind of stuff, the performance measurement. Now, we're not talking here about the literal management side of things in terms of key performing indicators and so forth, but more the measurement of has the leadership and the changes brought about by that leadership and the decisions being made as a result of that leadership made the kind of performance changes that are required. At the moment, I'm working for a number of universities, but they are all under a huge amount of pressure in the UK. The university sector, again, recording this in 2024, is under a huge amount of pressure, and they reckon that 4 out of 5 universities come September 2025 will be in absolute dire straits financial issues. The Office for Students, as part of the Department of Education, is already working with big companies such as PricewaterhouseCoopers to ask these companies to work with universities to make them more financially viable. Otherwise, they will be closing. So they're paying these companies huge amounts of money to come in as consultants to help universities turn things around. Now, performance measurement, I am amazed at some of the performance changes that I'm observing, such as spending a whole lot of money to change, you know, I don't know, let's just make up some kind of university, the University of Fairies. They've literally paid loads of money to then turn around and call it the Fairies University. They've literally just switched the name around because for some reason that's what's really important and it's going to cause an income increase. You're spending loads of money changing all your marketing material. I'm just flabbergasted at some of the performance measurement changes that are taking place in higher education at the moment. I can't help but think about the Titanic, right? It's heading towards an iceberg. What you need to do is change direction. But instead, what happens in a lot of universities, we move the deck chairs around, because moving the deck chairs around is clearly what's needed. We are living in a day and age, particularly with technology, the influence of AI, where we fundamentally have to think about what is the role and purpose of universities in society as they shape citizens and as they provide skilled labor for developed economies, etc., etc. The university degree has shifted in terms of its value. I've just published a paper on this recently. Actually, it came out in November 2024. It's open access. If you Google my name, it will come up, and I'm engaging in this whole idea of the value that universities offer. But it does require a fundamental shift. Now, this is where performance measurement comes in. Is the leader really getting to grips strategically with the direction of travel? If the finances are going down, there's a number of questions that need to be asked. Is it just about, new markets, new products, or is it about a fundamental shift, a strategic shift in the very essence of what it is we're doing and what we're about? And I think a lot more pressure nowadays is on leaders to be having this kind of thinking. And then, of course, making those changes and then monitoring to see whether those changes, tracking them, whether the implementation of those changes are actually addressing the internal and external factors that started off this process. This is kind of strategic control. And leaders play a vital role in understanding this cycle, understanding the product life cycle, the business life cycles, and knowing when particular kind of strategic direction changes and pushes are required and needed, and monitoring and influencing that. Now, again, we're going to go into lecture series number 5, evaluating all of those kinds of leadership abilities. But at this point in time, we're just thinking here about the strategic control. So in terms of the various techniques, and again, we're using the material here from ClearPoint Strategy, the precise control. So here we're thinking about what are the precise things that need to be done. So if we are having a shortfall on sales, what precisely is the reason for this? Is it the market is flooded with this product or service? Is it about the quality of the product or service? Is it about the awareness of the product or service? What is the precise control that is needed? Is it about the management of that particular product or service, etc., etc. Then about implementing that control, and again monitoring and adjusting based on whether that is making a difference. So again, coming back to universities, it's the sector that I work in. I know I'm aware of one university that has changed the entire credit system of all of their modules. I'm not quite sure why that makes any blind difference, but they have changed their semesters in order to have more contact with the students and therefore to have different points of entry. So they're looking at increasing numbers, which will then increase the overall income that comes in. However, they are not evaluating, right? It's your scales of economy. As we have more income, we need to provide more services. Have we produced a system, a mechanism that actually is not financially viable in terms of what it produces? And should we consider other forms of delivering this product and or service which allows more financial efficiency? I'm not seeing those questions being asked and addressed. Where apprenticeships was going to be a key element of income, the person who's running all of this is completely running it into the ground, and yet they remain in their position as a leader. It just boggles the mind. Implementation control, and all the evidence is there, but nobody wants to make the difficult decisions. Again, it's down to the leaders to be leading and making these kind of decisions. Right, so special alert control. So this is where we have things within the system that can make us aware when things are completely going out of control, when the reactive systems that we're trying to put into place is not working. In fact, it's counterintuitive. Again, I can't help but think about some of the decisions the Labour government's making at the moment, and the reaction that the markets are having. It's not about being stubborn and sticking to your decisions. It's about recognizing what the market is giving back to you and reacting and responding to those markets. So again, making sure that you have a clear surveillance of what is going on so that you can react and therefore then control what's going on effectively, not based on being stubborn or any of those kinds of things, but really understanding the market and the market indicating to you what needs to happen. In many ways, it's kind of like your body. right? Being aware of, do you have enough sleep? Are you eating the correct nutrients? Are you getting enough exercise? Ignoring those signals begins to add up a number of issues that may happen to you in terms of health, mental health as well as physical health. But listening to those signals allows you to be even more productive. I think the markets work in a very similar way. So the 7 steps of the strategic control process, and again, you might want to go back into management textbooks. I know Body, Introduction to Management, talks a lot about these kind of control systems. Again, a helpful way to think about, management, control, all this, the classic business management kind of stuff around this. So number 1, leaders need to direct and determine the control that is needed. What is the control? Where is the control? How much of that control? And again, thinking about the types of power that would be used in the way in which that would be enforced and how the influence would happen. Then setting standards. So if we need to control to what, for what, right? So what are the standards that is required? It's not just about the profit margins, but it's also about other things. So quite often companies have issues with retention, motivation. So, what are the standards which will then begin to address these things, which altogether then feeds into the productivity of the product or services that is being offered. We then need to measure that performance. So how do we know that we're reaching those standards? What are the indicators? So the key performing indicators and so on. We then need to benchmark that. So that enables us on our internally benchmarking, have we increased or decreased? So again, accurate data keeping, and then benchmarking in the industry to see whether we are now an industry leader in that particular thing, where we are with our rivals. Analyzing any of the deviations, so within our own company in terms of the figures, where are things changing and why are they changing, and then benchmarking, how are we changing in terms of the market. So we may be increasing, but we're still way behind the market. So, why are we not increasing like the rest of our competitors are increasing? Analyzing those deviations and then making the corrective action. Some really, really helpful things here for leaders with a management hat on to think about the strategic control processes within the company. Again, thinking about the types of power that will be used in these processes. Quite often probably using quite a bit of referent power, but also the legitimate power, I guess. So finally, just to kind of come into land on strategic controls, we have to think about this in terms of decision making, but we're layering it, hence we did in sessions 1, 2, and 3 first the ethics involved in all of this. In control, the high performing and large companies in the upper right quadrant of the map are most unlikely to become targets for acquisition. For them, the challenge is to sustain their position by hunting growth opportunities and options and slots matrix while maintaining returns. All right, so the upper right quadrant, they are in control. If anything, they may be the ones that, as part of their growth strategy, might actually acquire somebody else, which is fine. When you are at risk, so that's the bottom right-hand corner, which is in red, companies in the lower left quadrant are most at risk for takeovers, right? Being sold, acquisitions, etc. Their strategic imperative is to improve the performance of the existing business and make decisions on where to reinvest and rejuvenate. So the BCG matrix comes in here in terms of strategy, and where to divest underperforming businesses. Now again, this is leadership. It's not always easy to divest. It involves people losing jobs. It involves structures, changes. It changes the culture of the organization. But again, thinking about, what data informs these decisions, how those decisions are made, being transparent, being open, being equitable. I don't know how many times I've worked for organizations where the at-risk elements and changes that are being made is secretive. It's informational power that is being used here, and those at the top are in the know, and the rest have to worry about their jobs. I just don't think it's the right way to go about it, and I really question the ethics. In terms of targets, so market to book ratio, but a low book value. The high-performing small to medium-sized companies in the upper left quadrant, so this is the purple color, are attractive acquisition targets. These companies are in good position to maintain strategic control over their business as long as they can keep up their performance. If their performance drops, they will be in danger of a takeover. Again, in terms of the growth, who's benefiting and how is that being sustained? And is it sustainable in terms of that kind of growth and putting in those systems? We'll come back to sustainability in this lecture series. And then finally, the cost consolidators, the large underperforming companies in the lower right, may be attractive cost consolidation targets for the larger and better performing players. So again, and this comes from McKinsey's strategic control map, a really helpful way to think about strategic control. And again, we're constantly thinking about what does the leader do in these circumstances and how do they do it? What are the ethical values that are informing these kind of decision-making processes?